welcome to this edition of Here's What's Cooking at Key Chorale, CNN. Sorry about that. I meant to say hello and welcome to this edition of Here's What's Cooking at Key Chorale, CSI. Okay, wait a second. I got it this time. Okay. Welcome to this edition of Here's What's Cooking at Key Chorale, CBD. Okay, now you have to admit, that was a lot closer. I mean, CBD, CSN, it's pretty close. And I mean, it's no secret that there may have been some recreational drug use involved with the great band Crosby, Stills Nash. And until now, you probably didn't know that I had a part-time job working at a CBD dispensary. Ooh. It's not very often you hear about a choral group performing folk rock music, and this concert is surely a first, as the Key Chorale Chamber Singers present American Roots, CSN, Crosby, Stills Nash, April 22nd and 23rd. For this unique concert, we welcome back the Lovin' Brothers, an acoustic folk rock group made up of the triplet brothers Michael, Tom, and Joshua, to help us recreate and reimagine the music of the folk rock genre. We'll be exploring the 30-year discography of the folk group Crosby, Stills Nash, and other artists known for their intricate harmonies and timeless melodies. For many of us, this is music from our youth, songs we know by heart, like Judy Blue Eyes, Our House, Teach Your Children, Seven Bridges Road, and others. So thank you for joining me for this edition of Here's What's Cooking at Key Chorale, CSN, as we discover more about this music, these incredible artists, and how we came up with the idea of putting the chamber singers on the Marrakesh Express. As the song says, all aboard the train, all aboard!
But you know we're riding on the Marrakesh Express, they're taking me to Marrakesh.
In the late 1960s, Graham Nash wrote a song about a hippie trail in Morocco. He had written it for his band, The Hollies. And while they didn't take to Marrakesh Express, the soon-to-be iconic trio of Crosby, Stills, and Nash did. By the late 60s, Morocco was fast becoming an essential stop-off point on a new hippie trail. Artists, writers, fashionistas, and rock stars were all being drawn to North Africa, looking for spiritual enlightenment and maybe even a little hashish. By 1966, Graham Nash had made his own pilgrimage. Nash bought himself a ticket and hopped aboard a train from Casablanca to Marrakesh. Nash said, "I was in first class, and there were a lot of older, rich American ladies in there who all had their hair dyed blue. And I quickly grew bored of that and went back to the third class of the train. That was where it was all happening. There were lots of people cooking strange little meals on small wooden stoves, and the place was full of chickens, pigs, and goats. It was fabulous. The whole thing was fascinating." Inspired by his experience, Nash wrote this psychedelic pop standard with lyrics about animal carpet wall to wall, colored cottons hanging in the air, charming cobras in the square, and striped julabas we can wear at home. He wrote this song during the Hollies' Yugoslavian tour of 1967, but Nash could read in the tea leaves that the Hollies' time was coming to an end. On his first trip to LA with the Hollies in June of 1966, he'd been introduced to Cass Elliot from the Mamas and the Papas. She in turn had introduced Nash to David Crosby, who was with the group The Byrds. Nash said that when Cass introduced them, it was instant friendship. By the summer of 1968, they found themselves at a critical juncture in their careers. Crosby had been ousted from the Byrds, Nash had decided to quit the Hollies, and Stephen Stills' time with Buffalo Springfield was over. When these three voices came together for the first time, it was magic. It's that perfect combination of great musicianship, great songwriting, and great harmony that has made these CSN songs such classics. Their self-titled debut album was released in 1969. Marrakesh Express was released as a lead-off single and made the Billboard Top 30. Their first album contained several iconic songs like Long Time Gone, Wooden Ships, and Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. Stephen Stills had started composing the various sections which became Sweet Judy Blue Eyes before the trio formed. When it came time for a second single to be released from their debut album, their label deemed Sweet Judy Blue Eyes too long at 7 minutes and 24 seconds, and it was edited down to 4 minutes and 35 seconds in length. It became an instant hit, going to number 21 on the American pop charts. Stills, in addition to being the songwriter and singer, was also the one who arranged and produced much of their work. In fact, he often played most of the instruments. Their drummer at the time, Dallas Taylor, said, "Stills played almost everything on the first album. Except for the drums, which I played, he played almost all the guitars, acoustic and electric, organ, piano, bass, and percussion. He put it all together. He doesn't get that credit much, but Stills is a genius at production." Stephen Stills wrote this song about his then girlfriend, folk singer Judy Collins. Stills said, "It started out as a long narrative poem about my relationship with Judy Collins. It poured out of me over many months and filled several notebooks. I had a hell of a time getting the music to fit. I was left with all these pieces of song. And then I said, hey, let's sing them together and call it a suite, because they were all about the same thing and they all led up to the same point." While Collins and Stills had broken up a long time before the album came out, Stills said when she heard it, she called me up and said, "Gosh, it was like getting a love letter after all these years." Another song, Our House, was also inspired by love. It came out of the relationship of Graham Nash and Joni Mitchell. Nash said, "I came to live in America in 1969 and stayed with David Crosby for a couple of nights. He threw me a party and invited Joni Mitchell, whom I hadn't seen since meeting her when I played with the Hollies. After that party, I went home with Joni and spent a couple of years with her in her home at Laurel Canyon. One day, Joan and I got up and went to breakfast at a delicatessen on Ventura Boulevard. And a few doors away, there was a little antique store. And in the window, Joan saw this vase, went inside, fell in love with it, bought it, and brought it back to the house. It was kind of a cold gray morning, and I said, 'Why don't I light the fire and you put some flowers in the vase you just bought?' So she's cutting stems and leaves and arranging flowers in this vase, and I'd lit the fire. Now, my and Joan's life at that time were far from ordinary, and I thought, what an ordinary moment. Here I am lighting the fire for my old lady, and she's putting flowers in this vase that she just bought. And I sat down at Joan's piano, and an hour later, Our House was written." For their second album, the band added a new voice, Canadian Neil Young, and became Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Originally, they had asked Steve Winwood to join, but when he declined, they reached out to Neil Young. Around the same time, they were also looking for a youthful vocalist, and for the briefest of time, were known as Crosby, Stills, Nash, Young, and Little Joey. Although we did sound good together, the combination of irreconcilable artistic differences and me missing way too much elementary school, we just had to go our separate ways. In our show, we give a nod to Neil Young, and we will be performing his 1972 song, Old Man. The version we'll sing was inspired by the Canadian vocal trio, the Wailing Jennies. It has a very cool acoustic feel with beautiful harmony sung by our sopranos and altos. The song was written for the caretaker of the Northern California Broken Arrow Ranch, which Young had purchased in 1970 for $350,000. The song compares a young man's life to an old man's and shows that the young man has much the same needs as the old man. For the original recording in 1972, James Taylor played the 6-string banjo and sang vocals along with Linda Ronstadt. Speaking of notable guest stars on recordings, Jerry Garcia played the steel guitar solo on the timeless Teach Your Children. While recording at Wally Heider Studios in San Francisco, the band had just finished laying down the vocals, acoustic guitars, tambourine, and bass. Instead of just recording another guitar solo, they were trying to think of something different. Crosby said that Jerry Garcia was in the next studio recording with the Grateful Dead. They heard that he had been playing the pedal steel for a couple of weeks, so the band thought that would be the perfect addition. Crosby went next door and played the track for Garcia, to which he said, "Let me at it, I can't wait." Garcia brought in his pedal steel into the studio where Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young were working, and after one pass of the solo, Nash said, "Jerry, that's fantastic." And in no time, Teach Your Children became an all-time favorite with audiences. Working with the Lovin' Brothers Band on this concert has been a real joy. All the pieces we'll be performing were arranged just for this show. We have been collaborating on these custom arrangements for many months. These arrangements are not just replicas of the original versions. We are truly recreating and reimagining these songs in a way that brings a fresh perspective to them. The addition of full choir on these harmonies sounds amazing, and the unique folk style and artistry of the Lovin' Brothers really gives these pieces an unplugged, acoustic feel that works beautifully. While we'll be performing many of the classic CSN songs, we'll also be presenting a number of songs from that same era that also feature great vocal harmonies. One song that we really liked was an old song, Pride of Man, written by Hamilton Camp in 1964. It was made popular when Gordon Lightfoot covered it for his debut album in 1966. It has a real fire and brimstone feel to it, warning the listener to repent. The lyrics are, turn around, go back down, go back the way you came. Terror is on every side, though the leaders are dismayed. Those who put their faith in fire their faith shall be repaid. O God, the pride of man, broken in the dust again. Turn around, go back down, back the way you came. Shout a warning to the nations that the sword of God is raised. On Babylon, that mighty city, rich in treasure, wide in fame. It shall cause thy towers to fall and make it be a pyre of flame. O God, the pride of man, broken in the dust again. Okay, that is a lot of fire and brimstone. Ouch. Now, while the Lovin' Brothers and I would love for you to think that we have always known about this song, we didn't realize it was an old song. We had heard a very cool cover of Pride of Man by the Punch Brothers. They are a folk bluegrass quintet, including mandolinist Chris Thile. We heard their version and it really caught our creative interest. It has a great drive, incredible instrumental licks, and a catchy tune. It was only missing one thing, a choir. So we did an arrangement in a folk contemporary bluegrass style, giving a nod to the Punch Brothers version, but adding our own ideas, and came up with a truly unique piece. Another great song that we'll perform together is a favorite I first heard by the Eagles. Seven Bridges Road was written by singer-songwriter Steve Young in 1969. Seven Bridges Road refers to Woodley Road, located in Montgomery, Alabama. The name Seven Bridges Road was what the locals had called Woodley Road for over 100 years. Young was on a trip in Alabama and described his emotions as he traveled along this road. After he had crossed 7 bridges, he found himself on a country dirt road with Spanish moss hanging off the trees. There were old farms with old fences and an old graveyard. He remembered that it was a popular place to go and park or get stoned, a place to get away from it all. In 1980, the Eagles recorded it for their Eagles Live concert album. Before many of their shows, the band would often warm up in the locker room shower, singing a cappella Seven Bridges Road. Their warm-up eventually became their concert opener. The audiences loved it, and Seven Bridges Road ultimately reached number 21 on the Billboard chart. The biggest revelation to me in researching music for this show was discovering Lay Me Down. In 2004, Crosby and Nash recorded a double album simply titled Crosby and Nash. Lay Me Down has a powerful message and gentle, beautiful harmonies. The song was written by David Crosby's illegitimate son, James Raymond. Raymond was put up for adoption after he was born in 1962. The two had little contact until David Crosby had a liver transplant in 1995. His adopted parents connected with David Crosby. Crosby said, "They told me they knew I might not make it, but if I did, would I meet my son? As soon as I could stand up and walk, I did. There could be others out there. I have 6 children that I know of, but I think there might be a 7th one, a girl, but I have no way to find out." I guess that adds new meaning to the phrase, prolific songwriter. The lyrics to James Raymond's song, Lay Me Down, seem to really capture what Crosby and Nash might have been thinking and feeling as they looked back on their lives and career in their later years. Driving out through the windmills, and some of them were still. Sometimes it's hard to catch the wind, and bend it to your will. Even though it's hard to know just how the story ends, the road is long and it takes its time. On that you can depend. Lay me down in the river and wash this place away. Break me down like sand from a stone. Maybe I'll be whole again one day. Lay me down, lay me down. Maybe I'll be whole again. This piece is just beautiful. The gorgeous harmony of the choir with these poignant lyrics is a perfect combination. In addition to the pieces we'll perform together, you will also be able to hear the great work of the Levin brothers alone as well. The triplet brothers will be joined by electric guitar, drums, and bass to fill out the band for this show. We worked with them last season for our American Roots Bluegrass shows and had such an amazing time. While we were working on that show last year, we were already talking about this project, a project exploring the folk rock era of the late 60s and early 70s and putting our spin on these timeless classics. This is going to be fun. So many great songs, and it's your opportunity to sing along, tap your toes, clap your hands, and enjoy the many memories this music seems to always bring back. I hope you'll join us for American Roots CSN, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, live April 22nd and 23rd. You'll be glad you did. Thanks for watching. Here's what's cooking at Key Chorale. We'll see you at the concert.
You who are on the road must have a code that you can live